why I didn't go to fart.
Yes, that is a shame.
That or just me farting.
Well, maybe you'll have your chance to shine. Hello, Jacksonites, and welcome to the next installment of the Terminator franchise review. And oh boy, today do we have, my opinion, is the #1 most underrated installment of the entire Terminator franchise, with 15's Terminator Genisys. And joining me today is the same guy as last time, good old Trevor Thomson. Make yourself known.
Hello there, everybody. I'm back. No pun intended.
And of course, I'm writing this review in style today. I remembered my shades. And of course, I remembered my handy-dandy Diet Shasta Cola. And of course, my wife is in the background too, talking shit. Alrighty, so Terminator Genisys is a very one personally for me. It's because as of right now, it's the last Terminator film that I watched in theaters. But it's also the one that I had the most fun with in theaters. And it's also the one Terminator movie that, aside from Trev and maybe one other person that I've met, nobody fucking defends this movie. Nobody that I've met or talked to defends this movie at all.
It's a crying shame.
It's a damn shame. And I've never no, I don't really understand why this movie is so hated as it is. I've seen a lot of people say this is easily the worst installment of the entire Terminator franchise. And whenever I see somebody say that, I just think, no.
Exactly.
But it is also interesting because in terms of being a soft reboot / reworking that it wants to step in and remodel the original mythology and turn it into its own thing. Now, obviously, for a lot of people, this did not work out very well, which is unfortunate. But for me, I actually have to respect the filmmakers. What's your personal history with this film?
Okay, so like I said last time, Salvation was the first one that I saw in theaters. I saw it with my dad. We also saw this one back in, I think it was July
2015.
Yeah. And 2015 was a very nostalgia-heavy year.
Mm-hmm.
Because, there was Jurassic World and The Force Awakens, probably most notably. But on the small screen, so to speak, there was stuff like Tremors came back. And
oh, yeah, that's right.
Dead.
So, yeah, 2015 was a good year for movies.
Yeah, it was. I agree.
All right, so
anyways, as I was saying...
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I saw this with my dad, and he didn't really say anything. He didn't say that he disliked it, but, it clearly didn't make the same impression that it did on me, because I was sitting there watching. I was like, why does everybody hate this? Because, I'd seen some reviews, and there was kind of a bad buzz before the movie came out.
Unfortunately.
And, yeah, and I didn't get it. I didn't understand why people were so hard on it. But then there's kind of this attitude about any of the movies after T2. So...
yeah, it's kind of really frustrating with the fan base. It's just like they refuse to accept anything other than the first two films post T2. It's really, really annoying. It's not quite as bad as the Star Wars fan base, but it's up there.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Anything else to add?
No, that's pretty much my history. I'm actually glad that I've seen the three most recent movies in theaters. So,
Well, I saw 2 out of the 3. Terminator Genisys. My personal history with this film, I did also see this in theaters. Like I said, I only saw it once. I wanted to see it more times, but every time I tried to, after I saw it the one time, I just could not get around to doing it. I saw it in theaters of all people in my family with my aunt and uncle and my cousin. And I was really, really excited. This was the number 1 movie aside from Tremors 5 oh yeah, we got 2 fifth sequels from 2 franchises in 2015, Tremors 5 and Terminator 5. I just not realized that in 2015.
that's right.
Anyway, see, I was really, really excited to see this movie. I actually went dressed as Terminator to go see this movie. I had black boots, I had black pants, a black shirt, and my black leather jacket that I had at the time. And also, of course, I was rocking the shades. So I was so freaking
What a
excited.
nerd.
Shut up. I also went to see Terminator Salvation dressed as Cyborg Superman as well. I forgot to mention that last time as well.
And then you went to Star Wars with a lightsaber and turned it on.
Well, good to know.
Yes, I did. Anyway, so yeah, I went dressed as Terminator to see Terminator Genisys. I was so freaking stoked. I remember I saw the trailer, my jaw just dropped, and I thought, oh my God, this is the most fucking epic thing I've ever seen in my life up to this point. I was excited. I went to see the movie.
Yeah.
I went to see the movie in theaters.
Yeah, I forgot to mention. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but the trailer really caught my attention. Not the second trailer, because that kind of revealed a big twist that I wish they hadn't. But that first trailer was like, wow.
Well, I did see both trailers, and I remember hearing a lot of. I think is when the second trailer was when the bad buzz for this movie really started up. I honestly didn't really care, though, because nowadays I'm just kind of one of those people that kind of likes to spoil a lot of shit for myself. Not everything, but like take Godzilla versus Kong, for example. The only thing that I want to know about that movie is who fucking wins. Avengers Endgame, the only thing I wanted to know, does Hulk die? No, he does not. Iron Man does. Fuck you, Marvel. Anyway, so I was really excited to see this movie. I saw it in theaters. I was not disappointed. My mind was fucking blown away. It was one of the most fun movie theater experiences that I had had in a long time up to that point. And I walked out of the theater. You're going to say I'm a nerd again for this. I don't give a shit, though. My wife probably is, too. I was doing the slow, stone-faced Terminator walk, singing the Terminator theme in my head, walking out of the theater. I don't give a fuck. I was a very happy Terminator fan. And not long after the film came out on DVD, I got it, and I must have seen this movie like 12 times in a couple of months when I first bought this movie. I like Terminator Genisys. I think it's severely, severely underrated. Though now the rose-tinted glasses are now off, and I can see a couple problems that the film does have. But whatever. We'll get to that later. Anything to add before I go into plot synopsis?
No, I just it's funny that the fans hate this so much because it's actually a very fan-friendly Terminator movie.
Yeah, it is. And that's actually one of my pros that I'll get into when we get to our pros and cons. I'm sure you will too, considering this movie. Alrighty, so plot time. So the film actually is a soft reboot of the Terminator series, which takes the basic story of the first movie just in a very, very different direction. Oh, Emilia Clarke, that's her name. I can never remember her fucking name. I just know her as the Game of Thrones chick.
That got
That got plowed by Jason Momoa, disturbingly.
I envy the bastard.
We'll get to that later. I forgot about that. In 2029, human resistance leader John Connor, played by Jason Clarke, launches a final offensive against Skynet, an artificial general intelligence system. However, before the resistance can triumph, Skynet activates a time machine and sends a T-800 Model 101 Terminator back to May 12, 1984 to kill John's mother, Sarah. John's right-hand man, Kyle Reese, volunteers to travel back in time to protect her, and as Kyle floats, butt-ass naked — I don't want to watch Jai Courtney be butt-ass naked — he sees John being attacked by another resistance soldier. This alters the timeline and causes Kyle to experience childhood memories from an alternate version of himself. When it arrives in LA in 1984, Skynet's T-800 is disabled by Sarah and Pops, a reprogrammed T-800. This movie also does feature the return of Schwarzenegger as a Guardian Terminator. Pops was sent back to 1973 to protect Sarah when she was 9 years old, after her parents were killed by a T-1000. So she's only 19 in this movie? Or is she 20?
Which is funny, because I don't know if she was 19 in the original or not.
I don't think she was either. I think she was probably like 22 or 23. Anyway, so
somewhere around there.
When Kyle arrives in 84, he learns that the timeline has been altered. Kyle is intercepted by a T-1000, which Sarah and Pops destroy with acid. Sarah and Pops have constructed a makeshift machine similar to Skynet's, and Sarah plans to stop Skynet by traveling to 1997, the year it becomes self-aware. However, Kyle is convinced that the future has changed because of a message he received in his childhood vision, and he persuades Sarah to travel instead to 2017 to stop Skynet. In 2017, Kyle and Sarah materialize in the middle of a busy San Francisco highway, butt-ass naked, and are apprehended by city police. While they are treated for injuries, Sarah and Kyle learn that Skynet is now called Genisys, a soon-to-be unveiled global operating system which is embraced by the public. There's a part of me that kind of thinks that this movie has a lowbrow social commentary about people being addicted to smartphones and smart devices and shit like that. But I don't think they put that much thought into it, so I'm not going to as well. Let's see. John has suddenly appears and rescues Sarah and Kyle from incarceration. Pops arrives and unexpectedly shoots John, revealing that John has now become an advanced Terminator model known as the T-3000. The resistance soldier who attacked John is revealed to have been Skynet in physical disguise as another Terminator, being the T-5000. While Kyle was traveling back in time, Skynet attacked John and infected him with machine phase matter. John, tasked with ensuring Skynet's creation, traveled back in time to assist Cyberdyne Systems with the development of Genisys, hence securing Skynet and its machines' rise. A day before Skynet's worldwide attack, Sarah, Kyle, and Pops escape to a safe house and make final preparations to destroy Cyberdyne's Genisys mainframe. They head toward Cyberdyne's headquarters with John in close pursuit. However, during an airborne chase, Pops dive bombs into John's helicopter and causes it to crash. He, of course, survives and enters the Cyberdyne complex, where it advances the countdown from 13 hours to 15 minutes. Plot convenience. Kyle, Sarah, and Pops plant bombs at key points in the facility while holding off John. In the final battle, Pops traps John, after getting his ass literally kicked, in the magnetic field of a prototypical time machine, and as it goes off, both are destroyed, but just before the explosion, the remains of Pops are flung out of the apparatus into a nearby experimental vat of mimetic polyalloy. Kyle and Sarah reach a bunker beneath the facility, and the explosion sets off the bombs, preventing Genisys from coming online. Pop shows up, upgraded with mimetic polyalloy components similar to that of the T-1000, and helps them escape from the debris. The trio travels to Kyle's childhood home, where Kyle tells his younger self about Genisys and instructs him to repeat the warning to himself, securing the trio's arrival from 84. And Sarah and Kyle kiss, and they, along with Pops, drive off into the countryside. However, a mid-credit scene reveals that the system core of Genisys, located in a protected subterranean chamber, has survived the explosion, leading into a fucking epically large super sequel bait ending that frustrates me even more than Salvation's ending.
Ugh.
Yeah, my words exactly. And it's so fucking frustrating knowing that this post-credit scene will not be followed up on. Fuck all y'all.
Well, what's frustrating about it is that they pretty much wrapped everything up pretty well.
Yeah, this movie could have worked as just another standalone, but because of the post-credit scene's existence, this movie does not work nearly as well as a standalone film. It begs for a sequel, and it'll just never happen because I guess $400 million was considered a financial failure.
Not in China, though.
Oh yeah, no. For some reason, all the Terminator movies were huge hits in China. Like I remember listening to the audio commentary for Terminator 3. The actress who played the TX was saying that the biggest reaction that they got for the entire filmmaking process was when they went to China for the film's premiere there. There was just a huge crowd there that was just cheering for Arnold and the gal who played the TX. So I guess the Terminator series is a huge, huge, huge hit in China. So what do you think of this story, Trev?
I love it. I was quite riveted whenever I first saw it in theaters. Leading up to before they send Kyle back, right before they send Kyle back, I was like, this is something that I've always wanted to see based on what was described in the original movie, which, like I said last review, is still my favorite out of all these.
Mine too. As for me, I also do love this story. I think it's got excellent. You can tell that the filmmakers are huge fans of the first Terminator film because of how well this movie recreates the original Terminator movie and then moves on from there. I'm not going to say too much about that because that's one of my pros of the film, but I really think it was ballsy for them to take the basic plot of the first Terminator film and then change it around at a completely unexpected moment and turn it into its own thing. And I think it paid off very, very, very well. It may have been really ballsy, and it may have taken a lot of guts for it to happen, but in my eyes, it paid off. And it's really frustrating to know that, because like what Trev said, this movie is very fan friendly, but the fans don't like it. Yeah, you just can't please everybody, no matter how hard you try. It's so annoying. So, what are your pros for Terminator Genisys, Trev?
Okay, so actually, surprisingly, my list this time around are small, but I think what I mentioned, both pros and cons, they're kind of multi-layered. So I have 4 pros.
I have 7.
You have 7? Okay. Well, then mine's probably going to go quick. Okay, so number 1 is, again, the homage to the original Terminator, but this time I put a slash next to it and said the script. Because I think the script has a lot of really neat ideas. They kind of do I guess it'd be a Back to the Future 2 with this a little bit whenever they first go back in time.
Mm-hmm.
And they do a lot of really neat recreations of the the scenes from the original movie. They're not 100% exact.
No, but if you took a quick glancing look at it, you'd be fooled to think it was the exact same set from the first movie.
I just want my angry garbage. I just want my angry garbage guy to be saying, "Goddamn son of a bitch."
and saying that in that really slurred 80s garbage man voice. What the hell? Goddamn son of a bitch.
I always crack up whenever I watch that in the original movie.
Yeah, me too. Continue.
But anyway, I know why they cut it out, because for one thing, this is a PG-13 movie, even though they do it pretty well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'll get to that.
Yeah, but anyway, I like the recreations of the scenes from the original. They're very, very close. Sometimes I almost think that they're not exact, because they're kind of saying that, seeing as how the timeline has been changed, things aren't exactly the same as they were before.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I was thinking about it. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much in this script that brings up stuff we haven't heard in a long time from the series, because Terminator 3, even though there's things about that movie that I like, it was basically just a carbon copy of the second movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then Salvation was trying to move the series forward, and it made a lot of references to the original too, but still it wanted to show us something that we hadn't seen before. And we finally get to hear the famous "I can't be bargained with, can't be reasoned with" again, but it's coming from an unlikely source.
Yeah, very. But it still works in the film's context.
And sorry, I'm just trying to gather my thoughts. Let's see. There's just a certain way that some things are said, like John's dialogue is very, at last review you mentioned that Jason Clarke is very charismatic.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something about his delivery in like his little monologues that kind of just makes you think for a minute. Like he says stuff like, "You hear that, Kyle? That's the dice rolling." And he's talking about the time stream and everything like that.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of homage to the original Terminator, and actually, to be honest, going along with that anthology theme that we brought up,
this is very anthological.
Yeah, it's almost like it's trying to do an alternative version of T2. Because there's some stuff sprinkled in here that's from Terminator 2.
Like the return of the T-1000.
Yeah, and also the date for Judgment Day is the exact same. And that makes me think that, well, this can't really follow T2, because technically Sarah and John and Uncle Bob, they prevented that date happening. So really, it's just, and the Dysons are in here too.
Yes, they are.
So it's really just like, it's like they cherry picked these things from T2 that they liked, and they thought, okay, let's do our version of a sequel to the original movie, but we're going to have these little things that most fans tend to like.
It's just unfortunate that for the majority of fans it didn't work, but it worked for me. Moving on, talking about the anthology aspect. What?
Go ahead. No, I was about to say the problem is that they're putting Terminator 2 and the first movie to an extent on this pedestal, and they're not realizing that these new filmmakers are really trying their hardest to be respectful.
Yeah. So talking about the anthology aspect real quick, when Dark Fate was coming out, I kind of had this big epiphany that there's a lot of timelines in the Terminator. One of your questions that you have for me in my future 300 subscriber Q&A was, what is your own personal headcanon? Now, I'm just going to answer that question right now and give you a big one. There's a lot of timelines in the Terminator continuity, and I'm going to break them down for you and throw in where I see Genisys as it being in that whole conundrum of continuities. There's T1 and T2. If for those diehard purists that just see the Terminator franchise definitively ending at T2, there's T1 and T2. There's one. Then, of course, there's the natural continuity of T1 through T Salvation. So there's two. There is now the third one, which is T1, T2, and Terminator the Sarah Connor Chronicles, which that current timeline still remains in limbo because Sarah Connor Chronicles got canceled on a cliffhanger. So that's still unresolved. So that's three. Now there's a fourth, which is T1, T2, and Terminator Dark Fate. So that's four. And unfortunately, that one is now also currently left unresolved because of... we'll get to that. I now consider Genisys to be its own thing. Like, Genisys is its own separate continuity because of how much it reworks the timeline into its own thing. This is the start of a brand new timeline. It's not connected to T1. It's not connected to T2. It's just its own thing. And that's why I consider Genisys to be the ultimate of anthology installments of the Terminator series. That's just my own little headcanon going on there. You may say it's reaching, but that's just something that was really on my mind when I saw Dark Fate and when Terminator hype was up and at him again. And I don't know if you agree, but...
So basically, straight up reboot.
Say what?
So basically a straight up reboot.
Yeah. I know they call this a soft reboot, but because of how much it alters the timeline, I really think it just should be considered a straight up reboot and nothing else.
Yeah,
not a remake. Not a remake. If anybody calls this a remake of the first Terminator movie, they're going to get slapped. It's a reboot. There's a difference.
Not even close.
There's a difference between being a remake and a reboot. And there's also a difference between being a reimagining as well, which is what I consider Rob Zombie's Halloween. It's not a remake, it's a reimagining. A far superior film as well. But just throwing out there for all the Halloween fans out there. Mm-hmm. Continue.
Okay, so pro number 2. I really like both Amelia and Jason Clarke in this. And despite their last name, they are not related.
No, they're not. I thought that myself when I was doing research for this movie a couple years ago. But I was like, oh, are they related? No, they're not. It's just a coinky dink.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
And also, talking about Jason Clarke real quick, this movie was, to my knowledge, the third big blockbuster film in a row that he had in consecutive years. In 2013, he was one of the villains in White House Down. In 2014, he was one of the main characters in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. And now in this movie, he's playing John Connor, one of the most sought-after sci-fi characters of all time. I don't know if that was a coincidence or if he just had a really lucky string of movies for 3 years. But continue.
Yeah, very genre friendly.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, anyway, I do have a big crush on Amelia Clark, but I promise that's not the only reason I like her in this movie.
I forgot
think
about that.
Yeah, I think that she actually kind of does resemble Linda Hamilton a bit. And back in the day, Linda Hamilton was quite the looker, in my opinion.
Yes.
And there's mannerisms, and she does kind of channel. It's like a mix of teen John Connor from T2 and well, actually, it's a mix of both Sarah and John from T2 in a way.
Yeah, I can see it. Kind of.
Yeah, and they also, speaking of T2, it's almost like they're kind of doing a gender swap version of the whole. They did the father-son thing with the Terminator and John in T2, and in this they're doing the whole father-daughter thing with Pops and Sarah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the things I like about this movie.
Yeah. And Jason Clarke as John, he, again, whenever you brought this up last review, he is very charismatic, and you just want to soak up everything that he's saying and pay attention to the nuances in his performance and everything.
He's a fun villain. He's very fun villain.
Yeah. And some people, that's, I guess, one of their criticisms of it is the fact that he kind of leans too much into the evil aspect of the character in this version.
I think he would have been very, very boring if he was just trying to repeat the T-1000 from T2, being very monotone and stoic-faced and just walking around and just talking like a robot to people. Like you expect this guy to do this job and integrate himself so deeply into human society and fooling everybody into thinking he's a team player for, was it 3 years? Yeah, 3 years. Talking like a robot? No, you got to be charismatic. You got to get people on, like, to actually believe the bullshit that you're selling them. So I think it was a very, very smart decision to have Jason Clarke be as charismatic as he is, because also in universe terms, it makes sense because he's an infiltrator unit. He's trying to blend in. He blends in very well. Very, very well. Continue.
Well, yeah, had it not been for the spoiler in that second trailer, and if people had gone in fresh, I think they might have considered the big reveal, so to speak, pretty surprising, because they kind of do a little bit of a fake out there for a bit right after he shows up in 2017 to get him out of the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they do the whole, well, maybe it's a Terminator mimicking him. They do that for a bit. And that also kind of factors into my first pro, is that his dialogue, he's saying all these, actually it's stuff that we didn't know about the whole Sarah and John relationship. It's just these little things that he references, that he reveals, that I frankly just kind of find it very captivating. That's one reason why this holds my interest so much, is because it feels familiar, but it also
feels new.
It feels new. It also feels like you're learning something new about this thing that you're really into.
Mm-hmm. It's just another aspect of this movie I think is incredibly underrated.
Well, I'm kind of hoping that as time goes on, maybe people will come back to it and realize, hey, we kind of missed something special here.
One can only hope. It's been 5 years, and I haven't seen much of a difference in opinion.
Well, now everybody's bouncing on Dark Fate, so I guess it kind of has a little bit of a reprieve.
True, yeah. Which I also think that's kind of a shame, because I don't think Dark Fate is a bad movie. But we'll get to that when we get.
Do I, but
We'll get to that when we get to Dark Fate. So continue.
Exactly. Okay, so number three, or pro number three, the concepts. I mean, I think I've already kind of got into this a bit, but the whole playing around with time, even more than the Terminator franchise already has, is a very intriguing concept.
Yes,
And
I would
also,
agree.
and also the fact that we like they play around with the fact that there's more than one Terminator running around. That's not like the whole one's like a protector and one's the antagonist. There's actually more than one antagonist running around.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually one of my favorite parts of the 1984 segment of the movie is the fact that we have the original Terminator is running around, but then we also have this T-1000 that's out there too.
And then Pops.
Yeah, of course, and Pops is the protector in this case. But I really like the moment where the T-1000 revives the original Terminator, and they don't really team up against the three of them, but there's still this
Unspoken alliance.
Yeah, yeah. And it kind of reminded me of what the TX was doing in Terminator 3. Of course, she had her little antenna finger, but all the 1000 had to do was just separate a particle of itself.
Which some people may
that was
see
also
as.
another thing that.
Go ahead.
That was another thing I liked is that you kept on seeing the T-1000 kind of like send out. I guess you call them sensor units or spies, parts of itself. Like there was that piece that was attached to the door of their truck.
Mm-hmm.
And that again, it's the whole idea of playing around with what we know, but just doing something different with it.
Which some people may see that the T-1000 reviving the T-800 as convenient, but I always just kind of took it as well, since every single part of this organism, the T-1000, could potentially be its own thing. It only makes sense to me that if it just released a little part of itself, there's still pieces of its CPU in that piece. So, and that's all that it needs to revive a damaged CPU in another unit. So there's your explanation for that.
So it's almost kind of like The Thing in a way, but a robot version.
Yeah, I really fucking need to review those movies. Why has it taken me so long to review the Thing movies? The fuck? Whatever.
Well, because apparently the box office poison.
What was that?
Well, because apparently the reason they haven't done more Thing movies is because their box office poison, supposedly.
Well, apparently John Carpenter is doing another Thing project with Blumhouse pretty soon, so here's hoping.
Yeah, I heard about that. I hope they don't just call it The Thing again.
Yeah, no kidding. But that's a different that's a different story. Continue with your pros.
Yes. Okay. So anyway, I think you get my the general idea. I love the concepts in this movie and the fact that they just expand on these rules that we already know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I guess the last one I got here, number 4, is the score.
Yeah.
I do believe that the guy who did this is either associated with or a student of Hans Zimmer.
Let's see. Who actually did? Lorne Balfe. Sounds like a German name. Let's see. He's a Scottish composer.
I remembered the Lorne part.
He is a veteran of Hans Zimmer's remote control productions. Oh, man. Continue.
Yeah, so that makes sense. It brings the theme back in. Well, actually, they kind of just do the whole, play it at the end again. But there's still music throughout that evokes at least the first 2 movies.
Uh-huh.
Which I really like.
Okay, here we are.
So what do you think about the score?
It's one of my pros. If you're done talking about it, I'll go on to mine. Excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead, because you have a lot more, so I figure you're going to probably elaborate more.
Alrighty. Let's see. Hang on, okay, here we go. See, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 pros. Pro number 1 is this movie's sense of humor. Now, Trev has gone on record in telling me a couple times that he's not a big fan of the humor in the MCU. Now, in some cases, I can kind of agree now because I've become very disillusioned to the MCU. But, when the MCU is good, it's stellar. But it seems like 2015 was the year where Hollywood started inserting a lot of humor into a lot of movies where you'd think there wouldn't be. Like, most notably, Star Wars. That's when Star Wars was starting to become really funny. And they started really implementing a lot more humor. And it's not stupid humor. I think it's just clever writing that is just like it gets a chuckle out of you. This movie, I like the fact that it has a sense of humor. There's a lot of situation that comes from Pops because they're trying to teach a robot how to be more human, and hearing all these like stops in the middle of a highway. This guy is behind him saying, "Hey, asshole, move your car. Bite me." In the beginning of the movie, they say right before the T-1000 attacks for the last time, we have approximately 35 seconds. Boom! Come through a window, or less. What's another one? What do you have these magnets for? I use them to find my car keys. Nobody likes the smart ass, son. Well, my mom was Irish, so she encouraged my smart assness. Ew, pickles. Anyway, so I love this movie's sense of humor. It's I honestly think it was needed, but like it wouldn't have made any of the previous Terminator movies better. It's not like in T3 where the comedic moments were just dumb and you just kind of got a couple awkward chuckles out of them, like Arnold putting on those little rose-tinted glasses. That's only funny because it's retarded.
Yeah.
Here, the humor is funny because it's just clever writing and it's just kind of timely jokes. Though, unlike with Zombieland, where a lot of its timely jokes nowadays I find to be very dated, here, I think it's just fine. But then again, Zombieland is a decade old and this is only 5 years old, but whatever. Yeah, I like this movie's sense of humor. Anything to add to that? Trev?
Oh, no, I was just going to say that I was actually going to put the humor as a con. I mean, once upon a time I was going to, but these last couple of watches, I was really into it.
All right, cool. All righty, so pro number 2 is the score. Now, at first, I was going to say that this is my least favorite score of the entire Terminator series, but upon my most recent rewatching, which was 10 hours ago, I actually found myself really digging the score. Now, granted, a lot of it is kind of generic action movie music, which, being a student of Hans Zimmer, I find Hans Zimmer to be very generic nowadays, but it's still fitting for an action movie. Kind of like with Salvation, but I find it's a little better than Salvation because it's much more fitting to what's going on screen. Not to say that I think the composers were Mickey Mousing the whole movie, meaning they were composing the music while watching the movie and like making the music build to a crescendo during the climax of the film and then being somber when the film is slow. But I really think the score matches the ebb and flow of the movie a lot better than Salvation does. It's a little disappointing that there's still not that many Terminator cues. There's only that for 3 moments throughout the entire movie. When Pops and Sarah defeat the original T-800, for a quick moment when Pops reveals himself to Kyle, and then towards the end of the movie when Pops says, "I'll be back," helicopter. That's it. Now, both moments are great, but it's still fleeting and few and far between for a Terminator theme, which is a little disappointing. But also there's a lot of other there's also a lot more pop songs that are added into, like when Pops, Kyle, and no pun intended, Pops, Kyle, and Sarah are arrested by the cops. You hear the cops theme playing. That also adds into the movie's humor because it shows like Reese is 6 foot, Emilia Clarke's like 2 feet tall, and then Pops is 6'7", and he just gives his awkward smile. It's actually not much.
I have a callback to a deleted scene from T2 or from the longer version.
That's right. Yeah. Uncle Bob's really awkward smile. That's good. Maybe you can practice in front of the mirror or something.
Oh, by the way,
go ahead.
Do you want to know the names that I gave each one of the Terminators?
Sure.
Well, Uncle Bob is obvious. I call the one in T3 Macho Man. And then, well, actually, that's the only one I can give a name because, we have Pops in this one, and then we have Carl in Dark Fate. So, yeah, I christened Macho Man. So there you go. Yeah. You're welcome, Terminator fandom.
Not much of exaggeration, though, because Emilia Clarke is like 5'3" or 5'2". Oh, she's 5'2".
I'm like barely 5 feet. That's
so yeah, she's a short
really
little shit. Especially compared to the 6'2" that is Arnold. And for the record, no, he's not actually 6'6" like he showcased in Genisys. He's 6'2". Still tall, but whatever. The score. So the score overall, I think it's very good. It's not as generic as I thought it was going to be upon my most recent rewatching. It's not among the best, but it is better than Salvation. And definitely better than Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Well, you brought up that the dun 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 isn't in there very much, but there's the main. I guess it's the main theme for the Terminator movies. That pops up quite a bit.
Yeah, it's true. Overall, the score is good. It's better than Salvation, but it's still not among the best. Why do you buy those goddamn things?
Well, to be honest, G1 and T2 kind of set the bar there.
True. Anyway, so let's see. Pro number 3 is like Trev said, all of the T1 homages. There were moments where I was just blown away seeing this in theaters at how well the movie recreates all the 1984 stuff. There are a couple moments where it's not quite as seamless, but there are moments where it is seamless, and I was utterly blown away. Like Reese's arrival at 84 and stealing the pants. This son of a bitch took my pants! Though
I missed that too.
Especially when he's in the department store getting his clothes, his shirt, and his jacket. Like literally when the T-1000 walks by and you see Kyle's foot, just instantly made me think, oh my God, did they actually use stock footage? No, they didn't. But overall, I love all the homages to the first Terminator movie, and I can really, really respect that the filmmakers went above and beyond to make this movie look as close to the original Terminator movie as possible in order to make it as seamless as possible, which is really cool in my eyes. What? Pro number 4. This is the fanboy in me talking, but I really don't care. I was stoked to hear that Arnold was coming back for this movie. Because that's another thing that I really feel that Salvation was missing was Arnold's presence. Not counting the really cringy-ass CGI depiction of Arnold from the first Terminator, which, again, looks really dated nowadays. But I was really excited to hear that Arnold was returning as the Terminator in this movie. And honestly, I almost feel like it's a double-edged sword because he's not shown enough in this movie, but at that same time, he's given plenty of screen time. And he portrays debatably my favorite Protector Terminator in the entire series with Pops. He's a badass. He knows how to think on his feet. He has a sense of humor, especially with I like how they incorporate that. Obviously, yes, Arnold's gotten older, and they incorporate that into his performance in this movie when Kyle says, "Looks old. The skin ages. My auditory circuits have not degraded, however. I'm old, not obsolete." And that's a recurring theme throughout the film. Because when his hand starts fucking up later in the movie, he just smacks it a couple times. Old.
He also wants to make sure that Sarah doesn't see it.
Huh?
He also wants to make sure that Sarah doesn't see it.
What, his hand fucking up?
Yeah, kind of the whole, how parents don't want to see their kids, see them weak or whatever.
True. Anyway, so yeah, I just think Arnold is at the top of his game in this movie. It's his, well, kind of duh, but I feel like it's his best performance in a Terminator movie since Terminator 2. I just love it. Arnold's awesome in this movie. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pro number 5 is John Connor / the T-3000. Now, Jason Clarke does a very, very good job. I actually feel like he's the best adult John Connor, or post-T2 John Connor, because there's the kid who played him in Sarah Connor Chronicles, and I cannot stand him. For the life of me, I cannot stand him in that show. What?
Hey, do you think that Jason Clarke kind of gives off an older Edward Furlong vibe? Like,
yes.
Did you see Furlong grow up into him?
Yes, I do. It's not 100% consistent, but I can see a few mannerisms of like first act John Connor from T2 in adult Jason Clarke John Connor, and I think that's really cool. But I feel like Jason Clarke does a great job. He's clearly having fun with the role. And honestly, I find him to be more as the T-3000 than as human John Connor. He's great as human John Connor. He's a badass. He works well with Kyle Reese, and you definitely believe him as the leader of the human resistance. But he's especially captivating when he is the T-3000. It also helps that, in my opinion, the T-3000 is the most powerful Cyberdyne cyborg ever showcased in the entire Terminator franchise, even more so than the TX from Terminator 3, and definitely more than the Rev 9 from Dark Fate. The Rev 9 is cool and all, but I'll get to that when I get to Dark Fate. But I think that the T-3000 is easily the most powerful cyborg ever showcased in the Terminator franchise. Takes the best aspects of the T-1000, incorporates some elements of the T-800, and maybe a little touch of the TX, and you have one badass cyborg, in my opinion. So I was very, very, very happy to see that you have a great robotic adversary for the human, or for the protagonist in this movie, and the T-3000 is definitely up there.
Yeah, I'm actually glad that you brought up the T-3000, T-5000 thing, because not a lot of people pick up on that, especially the 5000, because, well, actually both names aren't mentioned in the actual movie.
Nope. I actually didn't know that was the T-5000 until I started doing a little more research on Terminator lore. But yeah, the machine that infects John at the beginning of the movie is known as a T-5000. It's just a shame we don't really see any more abilities aside from being able to infect people with machine phase matter, which presumably the T-3000 can do as well. Anyway,
well, and that factors into the whole, concepts thing. That was my third pro, is that they're, where do you go after a T-1000, or like we've seen in T3, and then later in Dark Fate, there's the whole combo of liquid metal with the endoskeleton. But so then this decides to say, okay, the last option there is to actually start infecting people
with nanotechnology.
Yeah, exactly. And also it's a really, really brilliant idea to flip things on its head and say that, okay, now the savior of humanity is basically its worst enemy.
Yeah, I can't understand why some people would have an issue with that, because it also kind of falls into dark territory or Dark Fate territory, where the number one central character of the entire series, that the whole mythology is revolving around being John Connor, is now morphed into the villain. And so it kind of embodies the phrase, a hero who's around long enough will eventually become the villain. But I think it's a nice twist. I think it's a nice way to spin the Terminator mythology and Terminator formula on its head. So I've never had a really huge issue with that. And it is a nice twist. But overall, yeah, Jason does a great job as John Connor, and the T-3000 is an excellent addition to the Terminator lore. And again, in my opinion, is easily the most powerful Cyberdyne cyborg ever showcased. Let's see.
Great.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pro number 6 is the action scenes. Damn, this movie's action scenes are utterly stellar. They're very well edited. They're very well shot. They're very well choreographed. The effects and the action scenes go together perfectly seamlessly. They're thrilling. They're captivating. They're entertaining. The action scenes in this movie, just overall, they're very, very, very stellar. And again, they have little bits of humor sprinkled out to make them even more entertaining. Like the highway chase after they blow up the gun bunker. When Pops gets thrown out of the school bus and he just goes face first into a cop car, he just goes, "Nice to see you. Get out." There's lots of moments in this movie where the humor grows on me. But overall, not much to say about the action scenes other than they're great. Mind my wife making food in the background. And the last pro that I have for this movie is this movie's special effects. God. Now, there's pretty much no practical effects in this movie, at least as far as I know of. There's the occasional prop for Pops' Terminator arm when it gets torn off. But a lot of this movie's special effects is CGI and green screen effects. But you know what? I'm so tired of people just automatically saying CGI is garbage, CGI is garbage, CGI is garbage. Stick with practical, stick with practical, stick with practical. Practical stuff looks great. Now, yeah, when practical stuff is done great, it does look great. Like, look at John Carpenter's The Thing. That is the epitome of practical special effects, in my opinion. However, when people just decide to shit all over CGI, they fail to realize that, a lot of hard work goes into making CGI effects look good, too. It's just a different kind of work. But when CGI looks great, it looks phenomenal. And in this movie, the CGI looks phenomenal. Like, I don't know if they did any de-aging on Arnold in the 84 segments. I don't think they did. But if they did, it looks really, really, really solid. All the explosions look great. All the green screen and composite shots look really good. And the CGI effects on the T-1000 are phenomenal. They look better than T2. I'm just going to say it. The T-1000 looks better in Terminator Genisys than it does in Terminator 2. Not to say that they look bad in T2, but they definitely do look early 90s, which again isn't bad, but it is something to make note of. But here, this T1000's movements are much more liquid than in Terminator 2. They're much more fluid and they're much more quick. And you can tell there's a lot of time and effort put into making the T1000 look like actual liquid metal. And it looks utterly phenomenal. And of course, the nanotechnology incorporated into the T3000 is stellar. Like all the little twigs that the T3000 has, how it's constantly reshaping and reforming its body to adapt to its surroundings, and how it's constantly twitching and moving, and there's like little ripples that goes throughout the T3000's body, and how it seamlessly morphs its torso into looking like John from the future, and different outfits that it has. It looks stellar, and I totally buy it as it being a nanoborg. So overall, the special effects in this film are utterly fucking stellar. And there's some of the best special effects of the last 5 years in big blockbuster movies, in my opinion. Now, with all that being said, what are your cons, Trev?
Okay, so I have 2.
I have 4. No. Do I have 4? Yeah, I have 4. But go ahead.
Well, this should probably go quick. Okay, so my first con is Jai Courtney.
Mine too.
Yeah, so you know how I brought up the Predator in our chats?
Mm-hmm.
You know who was actually up for Kyle at one point in this movie?
No.
It was Boyd Holbrook, who plays McKenna in The Predator.
No. That wouldn't have worked either, but I'm just going to say, Jai Courtney's miscast.
Well, I bring him up because he does kind of have a bit of a resemblance to Michael Biehn.
He does.
I've noticed,
True.
yeah. But I've also noticed that he also has an accent that carries over in all the movies I've seen him in.
True.
So that might stick out for some people.
Yeah, Jai Courtney's miscast. We may as well talk about him together. He's miscast. He's really, really, really miscast. He does a decent job.
He's too much of a meathead.
Yeah, he is. He's way too much of a meathead. He doesn't feel like Michael Bihn's character. He doesn't know how to think on his feet. He doesn't know how to talk fast. He doesn't know how to take charge of the situation like Michael Biehn did. He's also not. He's too buff. Another thing. That's another thing that differentiated Michael Biehn from Arnold. Arnold's the big giant robot, whereas Kyle is the scrawny, agile speedster. Jai Courtney's not. I mean, he's not Arnold levels of buff, but he's still way buffer than Michael Biehn was in T1. And also, he's low-key kind of stupid. The only thing that I like about Jai Courtney's version of Kyle Reese is that he's good with weapons. That's cool and all. But overall, Jai Courtney is very miscast.
Well, and I watched a featurette on my copy. I need to get the Blu-ray. I have just the DVD, but they had this featurette saying that he was like the best guy for the job because of, I guess, the chemistry. But then I'm thinking that there had to be somebody else who was probably a little bit better. But I don't know. I think this was around the time that his career was starting to kind of escalate. So they thought that he might be the next hot ticket item, you know?
Nah, not really. Because the only other two things I know of Jai Courtney doing is he was in Die Hard 5 in 2013, which is a fucking atrocious movie. And then he played Captain Boomerang in the first Suicide Squad movie, and he's also miscast there
He
too.
plays in Divergent too.
Oh, and apparently he's also in Divergent. So it kind of seems like his career kind of petered out in 2016. When did Divergent come out?
I think 2015. I don't remember.
Oh, okay. So yeah,
It was probably 2014.
so it kind of just seemed like, oh, so that's a 4-year string of big blockbuster movies that he had. 2013, 14, 15, and 16.
Sure, though. Maybe it's even 2012. I have no idea.
Well, she doesn't know. Anyway, so yeah, it seems like his career just kind of petered out after 2016 because I haven't seen him in anything since the first Suicide Squad movie. Maybe he has been in something, but I don't know. But continue.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. There seems to always be like these people in Hollywood who seem to think that somebody's going to be the next big thing, and they usually never pan out that way.
Mm-hmm. It's been happening more and more and more, especially with Disney.
Yeah.
But continue.
But anyway, he kind of seems like a less appealing Sam Worthington. Do you see that at all?
Yeah, a little bit. Now that you mention it, like way less appealing Sam Worthington.
So I kind of made a meta joke. You know, I was kind of hoping that this movie would follow Salvation a bit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I made this joke. Kyle looked up to Marcus so much that whenever he got older, he started to look like him, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Slight resemblance.
Yeah, a little bit. They have the same. They have a very similar buzz cut. But continue.
Yeah. So anyway, Jai Courtney, he's not great.
Nah. He's not terrible. There are a couple moments where
Okay.
I can buy him as Kyle Reese, and he has a couple funny lines. But really all I had to say about him is that he's just miscast.
Yeah, I mean he's fine most of the time, but they just could have got a better choice in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so con number 2 and the last one is the sequel tease.
Mine too. The super
Yeah,
super sequel bait ending.
Yeah, because like I said earlier, it would have been just fine because they wrapped up everything pretty much. They basically, in a way, kind of reset it back to where it's like a rewind back to Kyle and Sarah. You know, I mean, it felt like maybe not a perfect loop, but a loop all the same.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like any tease that's set up and never elaborated on, it just leaves you hanging.
Mm-hmm. Not nearly as bad as the Amazing Spider-Man 2, but of similar nature.
Well, actually, you know, I have a theory about that. Are you going to do that in your superhero binge?
More than likely. Not going to enjoy it, but more than likely.
Okay, well, I might be your guest on that if you're having guests for those.
Okay, sure.
Well, I'm saying that because I can elaborate on how I interpret that ending and how I'm kind of okay with it, but I don't want to go too off topic here.
But continue. May as well talk about that together too. Yeah, the super sequel bait ending. It's really frustrating. Really, really frustrating. Because, like you say, this movie could have worked perfectly well as a standalone film. Because it does wrap up all its plot lines. Obviously, it still leaves the hook of possibly having a sequel because you're going to wonder, well, what are Kyle, Sarah, and Pop's and what kind of adventures are they going to get into down the road? But as far as the Cyberdyne plotline goes, it's perfectly wrapped. Well, not perfectly, but for the most part, it's perfectly wrapped up. I honestly feel like the mid-credit scene was some studio meddling because they just wanted to sprinkle in some sequel hooks to show, oh, yep, now we have to have a second one, but still not give us a second one. It's really, really frustrating.
Yeah, because that's never a guarantee.
Like you said in the last review, got to do what Zack Snyder says. You got to shoot all your bullets. And if it wasn't for that post-credit scene, this movie would have shot all of its bullets. But no.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's still some things left hanging, like, or not hanging, but there's things you're wondering about, like who sent back Pops and
True. That's kind of another nitpick that I have with this movie. Where did Pops come from? And even the characters wonder that.
Yeah.
Like John looks at him and says, "Who sent you back, I wonder."
Yeah.
But continue. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. Your issue with the sequel bait ending.
Oh no, it just those little things, like you said, they're nitpicky things. They're things you wonder about. But overall, really the biggest thing that you can't just overlook unless you just don't watch it is the fact that, oh, so there's a part of Skynet or Genisys still left.
Yeah, it's really annoying. That's why I honestly choose not to watch the post-credit scene when I watch Genisys.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Anything else that you want to add?
To that, Con? Well, I was trying to figure out if I could come up with a theory for it being Legion in the next movie, like saying that was kind of a timeline that it diverted from, but there's not enough material there to kind of form something solid.
It's a fun theory, but there's just not enough evidence to support it.
Yeah, exactly. So I got started thinking about it, and then I realized, well, there's not very much I can go with on this.
Well, see, I have two more cons. Oh man, ugh. I'm hungry. So I have two more cons. I don't mean to spit in Trev's Cheerios, but con number 3 for me is Sarah Connor. Now, Emilia Clarke does a decent job playing Sarah Connor, because you pointed out that it's kind of like a mix of T2 John Connor as well as being a little bit of T2 Sarah Connor, which is fine. And it does look like she's having fun with the role. My problem is with her character. She's too fucking stubborn. I kind of feel like it was the filmmakers.
I agree with that.
I kind of feel like it was the filmmakers trying to really force feed female empowerment with females in media, trying to really step up their game and put their foot down and oppose the males. Not quite as bad as Dark Fate, but it feels kind of similar, because there's a scene where she says, I don't know if you're just here because you can think you can lock me in some room until I give birth to the resistance, but that's just not how it's going to go. That's fine. But when there's solutions to a problem and there's evidence to another solution to the problem, literally staring her in the face, she's so fucking stubborn, and it drives me absolutely insane. But again, she doesn't do a bad job playing the character. It's just she's so fucking stubborn, and it drives me nuts. It's not my biggest problem with this movie, though. That's my next problem. Pro number 4. Wow, is this movie tame. This is easily the tamest, not counting Sarah Connor Chronicles, that has to be tame because it's a TV show. But even then, that show has some really dark and bloody moments. It's just ruined by bad effects. Here, this you can definitely tell the filmmakers were absolutely shooting for a PG-13 rating. It's not like Salvation, where I do strongly theorize that they were trying to go for an R rating, but they just got cold feet and said, "Nah, make it PG-13. Just edit it to make it look PG-13." But here, they were definitely shooting for a PG-13 rating 100% the entire time. And I do think there's stuff in here that could absolutely warrant an R rating, and it's kind of frustrating. Also, there's not that much harsh language. There's not that much dark stuff. It's definitely a PG-13 film. It works, don't get me wrong, but still, this is Terminator. I want to see my R-rated robot action movies, damn it. Thankfully, the next movie rectifies that. But overall, yeah, this movie is definitely tame.
Actually, now that you, now that you actually bring it up with those last two things, I did think that they kind of lingered on her stubbornness a bit. And then you are right. This pretty much is the most sanitized Terminator movie.
Also, talking about Emilia Clarke real quick, I don't give a shit what anybody says. I think the sole reason that she was cast is because Game of Thrones was really popular at the time, and everybody wanted another opportunity to ogle at Emilia Clarke's body. Not for me, but I feel like that's the only reason that she was cast. It's because Game of Thrones was really popular, despite the fact they really botched the 8th season of that show. Woof. Yep, I know. So yeah, I feel like the only reason it's cast because of Game of Thrones, and to every other male eye except for myself, Emilia Clarke has a nice body. I don't think she does, but whatever. Yeah, she's too stubborn. What? What? I am not.
It's okay, Nick. I'll forgive you.
Hey, you can ogle her all that you want. I know you have a gigantic crush on Emilia Clarke. Go right ahead. It's also kind of ruined because whenever I see Emilia Clarke, I think of Jason Momoa tearing her to pieces, and it's disturbing.
Well, that is disturbing, but also on that note, that's like the only stuff I've seen from Game of Thrones.
Although, my wife doesn't complain because she likes Jason Momoa. Anyway, so that's all I really have to say about Terminator Genisys. Fuck, this movie's awesome. It's got a couple problems, yes. But you know what? This movie is way overhated. It's almost as overhated, honestly, as the Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie. Maybe some big words, but I love the crap out of this movie. What are your final thoughts, Trev?
As do I. Yeah, I mean, going over this again, I really only said a fraction of what I think about it. This would be a great thing to do like a commentary over, because while it's going, some of my thoughts occur to me while I'm watching what's going on screen.
Well, once I get my Xbox One, that may be a possibility. Anyway, so what's your final rating for this film?
Okay, I'd say it's probably either going to be an 8 or a 9.
I split the middle ground, and I give this movie an 8.5 out of 10. I love the shit out of this movie. I love the shit out of this movie, and I do think it is the #1 most underrated film in the entire Terminator series. Again, it's got a couple problems, but I think if you ignore those and just look at it as completely its own thing, Genisys is a fun-ass time. And I definitely think it could have warranted another sequel, but unfortunately, no. And that's all I have to say. Any other final thoughts, Trev?
No, that's about it. Again, I feel like I could probably think of a bunch of other things, but for right now, that's all I got to say too.
Alrighty, so with that being said, post your comments down below and let me know what you think. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. Trev, you have anything to plug?
Well, just that you can find me on the fictosphere.com.
Definitely go check out those articles. He knows how to write. Join us next time as we come to the finale of the Terminator series in the severely misguided but still not a bad movie, 2019's Terminator Dark Fate. And Trev will once again be joining me for that. Again, thank you for watching. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Hopefully. End the stream, damn it. There we go.